welcome to a slightly different looking Barnes Literary Society event. My name is Jo Weinberger and I'm the chair of the BLS, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by Roger McGough, one of our patrons, who is going to read through the poems that he wrote during the lockdown. But before I introduce Roger, I'd just like to explain how our events are going to look this season. We'll still be in the church, but we'll have a little bit of extra equipment, some lights, a cameraman. It is important to book if you want to attend one of our events. This is so that we can contact you in the unlikely event that somebody is sick afterwards. To book, you need to email join@barnesliterarysociety.org.uk. It is necessary to wear a mask in the church, and you will notice that all the seating has been arranged to facilitate social distancing. We're very much looking forward to seeing you here in the church or online. Take care and stay safe. So today, Roger McGough, one of Britain's best loved poets for adults and children, has kindly agreed to come and speak to us at the BLS. He's going to come and read some of the poems that he's written over the lockdown period. Awarded an OBE for services to poetry in 1997 and a CBE in 2004, he is also honoured with the Freedom of the City of Liverpool. Much travelled and translated, his poetry has gained increasing popularity, especially from its widespread use in schools. A prolific writer, he is twice winner of the Signal Award for Best Children's Poetry Book and recipient of the Chumley Award. His latest books of poetry are The Money Go Round, published by Walker Books in 2020, and Crocodile Tears, due to be published early October. Ideal gifts for Christmas if you're looking for ideas, and Venetia will be selling them in the Barnes bookshop. So Roger, before we read some of your poems, or before you read some of your poems, can I ask you about lockdown?
Yeah, well, I suppose in a sense, lucky for me being the age I am and being a writer, you know, being fairly reasonably monastic at home, happy to stay in and work. What I've missed a lot, of course, are doing the performances and going out and doing shows. And that's where a large part of the income comes. Myself doing festivals, literary festivals and so forth, and working with this three-piece band, Little Machine, and playing the OSO twice a year. It's really been great fun. So I've missed that, the social side of doing that. But I haven't missed, you know, going out to a lot of the things you're invited to go to, you know, sort of launches. I shouldn't say this, really. Friends have book launches and they invite you to go. But sometimes you've got to make an effort to be social, and I'm, you know, quite happy to stay at home. But what I've found in my writing, I've got two books on the go. One is for adults, poetry collection, and a children's collection. And I think I'll be spending more time on them. You know, really going back to them and going back and rewriting and revising.
Right, rewriting them. So
yeah,
looking at the, yes.
And also, and when you get to an age when you've written so many, countless bloody books, you know, a lot of poems, I look back at poems I wrote in 1960 and 62, and they're okay, but they're of its age, but there's something there that's living, and so you can go back to those and rework them.
It, yes.
Can I give you an example, actually?
Yes, please do.
This is a poem where it has the word pandemic in it. Now, the original didn't have pandemic. It was written about, I mean, James Callaghan, PM, was about that sort of time in the 70s.
Yes, yeah.
When things were difficult, and as they are now. This other poem, this is called Just Another Ordinary Day. In Parliament today, the Minister for Mists and Mellow Fruitfulness announces that as a result of the pandemic, there will be no autumn next year. September, October and November are to be cancelled, and the government to bring in the 9-month year instead. Thus will we all live longer. Emergency measures are to be introduced to combat outbreaks of well-being and feelings of elation inspired by the season. Breathtaking sunsets will be restricted to alternate Fridays and gentle dusks prohibited. Fallen leaves will be outlawed and those found in possession of conkers imprisoned without trial. Thus will we all work harder. The announcement caused little reaction. People either way don't really care. No time have they to stand and stir, looking for work or slaving away. Just another ordinary day. And that was one sort of, it's got new life in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
I quite enjoy
it really
going
resonates.
back.
Yeah,
And this sort of,
that lost time.
Yeah. So I've enjoyed doing that and spend a lot of time working and helping my wife around the house, of course.
And did you find, I mean, do you read? Did you find that you were reading different books, or were there particular things that you were reading?
No, Hilary does the reading. Actually, she's a great reader, Hilary, my wife. I read, but I'm not a great avid reader in a sense, because it takes away from what I'm doing. I listen to the radio. I read poetry books, of course I do, and I usually have a novel on the go or something. Yeah. But I wouldn't say I was a great reader. It's odd in a way. People expect you to know a lot, and I don't. It's just poetry, in a sense.
But I think poetry, in a way, during the lockdown, I mean, I found I was reading a lot of poetry, and it reminded me of something that you said about reading a poem being a time to be alone with yourself.
Yeah, and what the exciting thing, like poetry, people do, or some people think, that your poetry arrives, the poem arrives fully formed, and it's crafted, and it often isn't. It often comes from a dream or something overheard. You start the poem and you don't know where it's going. You don't know what the ending is, what's happening, and the thrill of it is developing the ideas to see what happens. And this is an example of a poem I haven't ever read before, ever in my life, and I don't know if I will again, but about writing poetry. And it's called Creeping Up on Poetry. Creep up on poetry when she's feeding the ducks. Don't startle her though, you might end up in the water. And talking of being out of your depth, if she invites you to a book launch, don't go. The sight of a slim volume sliding down a slipway into the river is not a pretty one. If it is raining heavily at the bus stop, don't ask poetry if you could share her umbrella. You'll end up paying her fare and carrying her bags. Rather, pretend you enjoy getting soaked. Look up into the sky, open your arms and sing. If poetry should lose patience and scream at you, threaten to take up gaming and accountancy. And remember, that poem you're about to write has already been written many times over. But carry on. Fresh pair of eyes, ears and all that. If poetry puts the phone down on you, wash your hands, count to 10 and then ring back. Hello, you have reached poetry. We are sorry, but there's nobody here at the moment. Odd. Isn't that your voice on the answer phone? Sidle up to poetry while she's on the platform checking the underground map. When she's finished, introduce yourself and amuse her with stories of accountancy, ducks, book launches, and that poem you're about to write. If she runs up the escalator, don't be tempted to follow. You've missed your chance. Instead, go home and begin writing that poem that has already been written many times over. But, fresh pair of eyes, ears, all that.
Oh, that's lovely. Do you find that? Oh, sorry, you still.
No.
Do you find that the poetry doesn't answer the phone, or that she? I mean.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, you always think ring up. I like some dial a poem. There used to be a thing called dial a poem.
Dial a poem.
Yeah, in the olden days, rather like underground poems on the underground. The poems on, yeah. It was dial a poem and run by the Poetry Society.
Oh, how lovely! I'd love
and
that.
I used to record a few. So you ring up the number, 999. And then you get someone reading a poem,
We need that. We need that again. I think. For the times.
BLS, dial a poem. Yeah.
So, what poetry do you like to read when you're reading?
I mean, I like a lot of American poets. I do a lot of creative writing workshops occasionally and so forth. And I always try and get people, wean them off. People come with the classics, which is fine, the canon. But I never did English literature at uni, and I failed O-level English literature. So I never did it in the sixth form or beyond. I was good at language. There's a difference.
Yes.
People think that English is English, but I was good at language. I like the nitty-gritty, but I never got around to reading the books at the school. So I never did. I did French. I liked French literature. So I tried to. Stuff I liked when I went to university was the French poets in translation, Verlaine, Rimbaud, and all that sort of stuff. And then some of the American poets, Ginsberg, Ferlinghetti. But I do like a lot of the American poets like Billy Collins and C.K. Williams and Kenneth Koch, poets. People often are less familiar over here.
But we don't hear those
good
names.
And they're sort of chatty, sometimes a bit languorous and things, but they speak in a language that you don't have to work too hard on peeling the meaning and so forth.
Yes, and I think that's really useful sometimes, isn't it?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yes. And what's happening with Poetry Please at the minute?
Yeah, it starts again next month. Excuse me. The first one I'm doing is with Ian Macmillan, will be the guest poet on, and we're doing it from home, of course, and it'll be on Zoom, even though it's a radio program. So I'll be talking to him out there, and then Benjamin Zephaniah, and of course, because they're using Zoom, we'll be bringing in some American poets.
Right.
Will be coming in. Anyway, German poets or Arab poets, whatever, which would be rather nice. Bring them into the program. So look forward to that.
Yes, that's fantastic. That sounds great.
Yeah, very good.
Now, do you have anything else that?
Oh, it was going so well, wasn't it?
Right. I'm just desperate to get as many poems out as
possible. And just do two, and this is one.
Because they're so lovely.
This is just one. I was thinking about where did all this blinking COVID nightmare come from, and obviously people haven't mentioned the gods.
No.
The gods. I mean, it's obvious too if you think about it. What are the gods doing about it? Here's one called Eternity. Same old. Inevitably, a few of the gods grew bored with eternity. Same old thing, day after day, year after year, century after century, aeon after aeon, etc. after etc. Of course, there were the fun times when not cavorting and carousing, devising new ways of keeping the humans anxious and fearful, like whipping up thunderstorms, spinning tornadoes, burping volcanoes, spewing tsunamis, cooking up new recipes for plagues, and the old favourites, the tried and trusted famine and war. Happy days. But the days seemed to be endless, which they were. Melt a few more ice caps, give some ethnics another good cleansing. Up to here. The gods had it up to here. Until one yawny, boring morning, one of them had a brainwave. Just for a change, he said, just for a giggle, let's make the poor sods happy. For one day only, we'll call it Happy Humans Day. The other gods looked up from their carousing and cavorting. For instance, volcanoes could spout wisdom. Plagues could eat themselves, suggested another. Gentle tsunamis deliver gifts of gold, said another. No more killing or cruelty, famine or disease. Excited now, the gods competed to think up clever ways of bringing instant happiness to 7.7 billion people. Some ideas were ingenious, I should expect, while others were just, silly. But the brainstorming sessions were great fun while they lasted. Of course, they never actually got around to doing anything rather than thinking about it, but it took their minds off things for a few centuries or so. By which time, the gods had grown bored again and completely forgotten the point of the exercise. One whistled up an avalanche, another crashed a train. One brought down the internet, another a plane. One spat a deadly virus. One yawned, so did another, and so on, etc., etc., etc.
Fabulous.
And this, trying to finish on a positive note, And this is when it's over. When it's over. What will we have learned from stillness and silence? From sharing, not taking, waiting, not pushing, whispering, not shouting, dawdling, not rushing. When life is back to normal and the hugging is over, will we look beyond ourselves and help the earth recover? This morning, the only cloud on the horizon was a cloud. Without fear of intrusion, it drifts above, full of itself. The sky, has it had a facial? Its skin positively glows. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Superman? No, just a bird. And on a branch, another is singing. The purity of the note. No need today to clear its throat. If trees could smile, this one surely would. Imprisoned for our sins, is now the time to question why? When it's over, what lessons? Ask the tree, the bird, and the sky.
Well, that's a super place to end, actually, because that really is thought-provoking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very thought-provoking.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Roger.
Pleasure.
Really, really interesting to talk to you.
Yeah,
And super poems.
Great to be involved with the BLS.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.